Morning. Good morning, and welcome to the SitRep for today, which is the 8th day of May in 2022. Happy Mother's Day for all you mothers out there. Hope you're having a great day and getting spoilt by your little children, or big children, as it may be. But happy Mother's Day. Hopefully they're giving you lots of cool stuff and cool presents and yeah, big shout out for the mums today. I got a respect for the mothers, especially the mothers within our community, within this sort of prepping community. It's really what I'm seeing recently, and I was just talking about this to a mother yesterday, is the shift that I've seen over the past 2 years. So within the prepping community for years and years and years, it's been like, lone wolf weirdos, tinfoil hat kind of guys sitting out in the bush and doing all that sort of stuff. It's been male predominantly focused. And the shift that I've seen over the past 2 years is that women have really taken up the mantle, and especially those mothers out there started to think like, hey, shit can happen, and I'm seeing it now. So just want to do a big shout out this morning to all the mothers out there, and hope you're having a great day on this 8th of May, Mother's Day. And keep prepping. Keep those kids safe. Good work. All right. Also, I want to say a couple of things about yesterday. Did the talk at the Free at the Sea event. It was great fun. Awesome. Good to be out in the sun. Good to be in some weather that wasn't freaking freezing for once. Had an awesome time with Lauren up there, meeting a whole heap of people from the interwebs that I've never seen you guys before. So it was awesome to see you. Yep. Just an Aussie battlers. Good to meet you yesterday, man. Over what were we eating? Tacos, fish tacos. It was great. they were delicious. Yeah, I had a great time. Getting up and speaking in front of people is not my natural state. So, a little bit out of my comfort zone there, but had a good time. Got to speak about stuff. Talk about prepping stuff, talk about gold and silver. Was really blown away when I got off stage, was mobbed by people wanting to talk about gold and silver. There's obviously a lot of interest there in it. And it really made me think there's a whole bunch of other videos that I need to start shooting and getting on top of that sort of stuff. So hopefully in the next week, I'll really focus in on that and get some more videos out for you guys. But thank you very much for everyone who rocked up, and thank you guys for joining me as well and being part of this whole shebang. Because I woke up this morning and guess what? I've got 1,000 followers, and I'm pretty stoked about that. I mean, I'm not in it for the followers. I started doing this when I had 3 people watching it, and I'm going to continue doing it if it falls back down to 3 people. But that was a pretty good little milestone for me this morning. I can't remember who the 1,000th follower was. I should have screenshotted it. Anika or someone. Well, I'll look at it again. Anyway, it was somebody who had like 16,000 followers. I was like, oh, that's cool. But thank you every single one of you for joining me on this coffee fueled rant this morning. All right, let's jump into it this morning. I haven't got too much. I tried to restrict it this morning, but there are some pretty interesting things. So let me roll up my sleeves and let's get into this morning. All right, we have some more food diseases and food issues. So, foot and mouth disease detected in Indonesia. So this has got Australia on alert. People in Australia are freaking out a little bit. Not too much, but our cattle industry, which is huge, is looking at this and going like, whoa, hang on, Indonesia's pretty close to us. We export a lot to Indonesia. I'm unsure about if we import anything from Indonesia as far as cattle or stock goes, but there is a possibility that happens. But we are definitely a net exporter of food, and cattle being one of the larger ones that we do export here in Australia. But that's off our shore. That's very close to us. Indonesia is one of our closest neighbours. So the fact that they've got foot and mouth disease detected there, that's a bit worrying. Australian biosecurity is always on the lookout for these sorts of things. So is this the next thing? Is this the next one in a long line of diseases that we're seeing within poultry, within stock, within cattle around the world? Let's hope not. Certainly don't want that to get into Australia and affect us at all. All right. Evacuate the grain. Nearly 25 million tons of grain is stuck in the Ukraine. So obviously, war's broken out in Ukraine. Things stop, but there would be a flow-on effect. War doesn't happen. People have this idea, I think, from Hollywood, that when war breaks out somewhere, it's war everywhere, all places at all times. There's just war going on, and it's not like that. I've spent months and months and months in a war zone in Afghanistan. That nothing happened. Very little happened. There was a couple of little minutes really of fighting that I experienced in reality. So, life does go on, things happen. There's cities that are under siege, but there are parts of Ukraine that are still working. So they are still out there, they are still farming, and they're going to have a shortfall. But this last one that they planted a year ago has come up, and now they've got the grain. Bang, here it is. We're ready to export this. Ukraine grain. That's it. 25 million tons of it is ready to go out. Probably heading to places, most likely Africa. That's one of the big places that they export to. So there's going to be a huge shortfall there. So I often talk about this, like the follow-on effects for Russia and Ukraine not pumping out their grain into the world. Well, that's, they're not going to be able to plant this stuff. They're not going to get it out into the world next year. But this is going to have an effect right here and now if they can't get this stuff out very soon. If they've got some sort of secure storage, then they might be okay. But, this stuff goes out to other places and gets made into other products relatively quickly. It doesn't sit around for years at a time because it goes bad or it gets destroyed or eaten or moldy or whatever. So, this is yet another thing that's looking at our food system at the moment and showing us on how shaky a ground it is. So what do I always say? Secure your own food, guys. Go and grow your own food. Go grow your own grain. You grow your own grain. No, don't. No. Probably not going to grow your own wheat, but just start growing your own food. Secure your own wheat. I was in Costco not too long ago, and those shelves are still jam-packed full. There are like 20, I don't know how big it is. I don't really eat that much wheat myself, but I want to say like 20 kilo bags of flour. And it's like $8, $10 or something like that. You could go drop $100 on that if you had the ability to store it long term, and you'd be secure for, I don't know, however long you want to eat bread, I guess. Months, weeks, years, I'm not really sure. Okay, last little disease thing that's popped up. This is not to do with food, but it was another interesting one. I'm always keeping my eye out for these little pop-ups of various tropical and rare diseases. You quite often see things like an Ebola-like disease popped up in China and bang, it's gone. You're like, oh, what happened with that? You said 4 people had possibly had Ebola in China, and now we're not hearing anything about it. Well, I'm sure you can guess what happens to people in China who get Ebola. Not good. They get plastic wrapped. Oh, my feed didn't cut out. I said the C word and my feed didn't cut out for once. Shock horror. UK Health Security Agency came out and said a patient who has recently traveled from Nigeria in Africa, where they came into contact with somebody who was infected with monkeypox, and they tested positive for monkeypox. So add that to your list of things now to worry about. Got fucking monkeypox now. What the fuck? Come on. Hello. Come up here. Come up here and say hi to everyone. Hello. And here's a dog. So the world's not that bad. All right, get out of my face now. Thank you for coming and saying hi to everyone. That's my German Shepherd puppy, who's getting quite big. So yeah, monkeypox is a rare viral disease, or infection, I should say, that does not spread easily between people. So that's pretty cool. We've got another disease popping up. At least they're coming out now and saying, hey, it doesn't spread easily between people. So don't worry about it too much. But the fact that these sort of things are coming up and they're popping up into places like UK, never a good sign. I think. And when I'm saying never a good sign, it's like, yeah, the disease is bad and, infections are bad and blah, blah, blah. All these viruses is horrible. What I'm more concerned about is actually what our government's going to do to us. After 2 years of being punished by governments, by my government, I'm really wary of it now. And I'm like, I look at these sort of things pop up. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. What now? Come on, please. Do not, no more lockdowns. Let's not go down this show again. Anyway, that's a little interesting tidbit that I saw. I'm always looking out for these things, but it's just yet another reason why I'm always like, hey, at least have a couple of weeks worth of food or something in your house, because we know what governments do now. We know what game they're playing, and at the drop of the hat, they can be like, right, that's it, stay in your house, don't leave. So, the couple of times that I have been sort of exposed to that kind of behavior, that malarkey from the government, I've been, okay, cool. And it's one thing I say to people, like, hey, just think about it. Like, if for some reason, this is probably a good example, but if for some reason you just couldn't walk out your front door this morning, you had to shut your front door and not leave for the next 2 weeks, are you going to be okay? Do you have enough water in your place outside of just the taps? So let's say the taps don't work, take it to that next step. But, if the taps did work, do you have enough food in your house for starters? Okay, now the taps don't work. Do you have enough water in your house? Okay, now there's no electricity. Can you power your stuff? Can you, survive the things that you need to keep refrigerated or whatever? So start to think of it better like that. 2 weeks is good starting target, I think. Word is another lockdown is definitely happening. It's always the word. Could happen. Well, we know they do it now, so, be prepared. Or semper paratus. No, I'm not disappearing. It's usually what I say at the end, but don't worry. Okay, this one popped up again. I just want to show people again how fractious our world is at the moment, how much tension there is in the world at the moment, protests, things like that. So this is another protest story, but it's actually over the overthrowing of a government. So Sudan just had a coup d'etat, a coup where their government was overthrown. The people are not enjoying that in particular. So they are rioting in the streets, and there are quite big clashes now. So the response to those riots is coming out now. They're getting hit. So this is in Sudan. We're talking about Africa here. But again, I like to just throw these little things out there just to remind you, like, hey, there's a big world going on there. And at the moment, we've got a lot of internal conflict within countries. It's not just what's happening with Roe versus Wade in the US. It's happening all over the world. There's heaps of places at the moment that are having civil disorder or riots. And we've got a number of flashpoints that are I would say, at the edge of war. One of my favorite YouTube channels, actually, which is called What If Alt Hist. So alt as in alternative history, alt hist. What If Alt Hist. Go and check out his channel. It's awesome channel. He just put a video out, I think yesterday or today, saying what's the likelihood of World War III happening. It's great. There's heaps of really, really informative graphics that he puts up there. One of the really interesting ones was a graphic of all the flashpoints in the world today. And it, we've got Ukraine obviously, but then it comes down and it goes through Turkey and the Azerbaijan area. There's, two that are sitting in there. We've got one sitting in Iran with the Iran-Israel Palestine fracture that's happening at the moment. We've got obviously India and Pakistan. We've got India and China. We've got Taiwan. We've got North-South Korea. I think he actually missed one with Japan and Russia up in those islands there. So, it's this big ring around China, and it's kind of like, again, I think in 30 years' time, we'll see this in a history book and people will be like, well, it was so obvious that something was about to kick off, but right now we're in it, and a lot of people aren't seeing this bigger picture that's actually unfolding. So this is another thing that I just like to point out, these things like, hey, there's a lot of shit that's going on in the world at the moment. Know that the world is becoming maybe a less stable place at the moment, and use that not as fear, because you're going to take in a lot of fear from the mainstream media. That's all you're going to be fed. Just look at it as I try and do, from that kind of like, okay, this is interesting information for me to know. How do I best prepare myself? what happened here? There was a coup d'etat. They overthrew their government. Now the people are rioting against it. What if that happened in Australia? Unlikely. But what if it did happen in Australia? How can I best protect myself? What things do I need? And like I said, for the most part, for most issues, I would say locking down in your house is arguably the best thing you can do. Everyone's in a different situation, so that's a pretty broad brushstroke that I'm painting you with there. But for most people, you can build up enough resources in your own house that you can survive for some time, no matter what the issue is. Unless, of course, you've got to leave your house and then you need a grab bag. And I'll actually be probably shooting a video, or at least just chucking a story up today about me building a grab bag. I'm got to head up to the Big Smoke, Sydney, for work for this week. So I'm pulling apart my grab bag and rebuilding it. And that's what I encourage people to do. Like, always be going through these things. Don't just build it, set it, forget it. That's okay thing to do, but really should be updating these sorts of things and going back through it. So, if you use something out of them, make sure that you replace it. If your circumstances change, as mine are, rebuild it, repack it, and make sure that you know exactly what is in there and that you've got the right stuff. Grab bags, and it's fun. All right, weather effects. Another strange weather effect. Deadly flash floods destroy hundreds of houses in Afghanistan. Flash floods, are they unheard of in Afghanistan? No, they do happen. They happen everywhere in the world. But yet another one. So we're seeing, large weather effects. These that are not like, there was a big weather effect and it kind of affected a suburb or whatever. These are like destroying hundreds of homes. We've got thousands of people affected by these weather effects. So again, these are just things to look out for. And I think weather effects, as I always say, are one of the bigger things that we should prepare for as human beings. So whatever that looks like for wherever you live in the world, it might be storm damage, it might be fires, bushfires, it might be floods, it might be extreme cold weather, it might be extreme hot weather, it could be earthquakes, it could be hurricanes, it could be tornadoes. I don't know where you live, but have a look at that. Identify what the threats are in your area. Think about what the likelihood is and what the consequence is if they happen in your area, and then try and mitigate that risk by building in the plans or the system or the preparations in order to make yourself and your family safe in those areas. So it might be storing up things. So if I'm in an area that has storms, and especially if I'm around large trees, I might think about trimming up those trees. I might think about, okay, what happens with storm damage on homes? Broken roofs, ingress of water. What do I need there? Tarps. Do I have tarps? Tarps and rope and tie down straps. Okay, so I go buy them. Windows broken. Right, what do I need? Plyboard, maybe, drill it up. Or again, tarps, tape, 100-mile-an-hour tape, sticking that up over windows. It's these sorts of things. It's just an example, but this is the sort of stuff you want to think about. And then, of course, on top of this, always grab bag. What if a fire is coming through and I have to leave? What if a flood is rising and I have to leave? You can have all the best preps in the world, but at the end of the day, you can't take them all with you. So you're going to need something to go mobile as well. You should always have that plan. I always tell people this: have a plan to stay, have a plan to leave. Should I stay or should I go now? That's what we used to do in the military, essentially. We'd have many different plans, but if I kind of boiled it down into two main categories, whenever you go somewhere, you've got a plan to stay or a plan to leave. Plan to fortify your area and fight from there, or a plan to skedaddle and get out of there, bug out. All right, let's turn our eyes onto the Great War. No, there's no Great War happening, but as I said, a lot of fractious stuff, and especially around China. And China is kind of in our neck of the woods here in Australia, so it's something that we should talk about and think about. And I try not to do this from like, China's power's rising, they're going to start a war, wring hands, like, it's all bad. It's more like, hey, let's just keep our eye on this. If something does happen here, let's play little mind games. Let's think, if China does go to war, if China takes Taiwan and it drags US in and we're a US ally and we start going to war, what's happening there? How do I best prepare myself? How do I keep myself safe? Now, any war that we're going to enter into is going to be vastly different from any war that we have had in the past. And that's one of the big mistakes that everyone always does, is enter into a war assuming it's going to be the same as the last one that we did. It's not going to be that. So there's going to be a whole heap of unknowns. But generally, larger scale wars mean a time of less for everyone. It means a time of austerity. It means a time of rationing. So again, the better we can prepare ourselves and set ourselves up as individuals, as families, as communities in our own area, the better off we're going to be, just regardless of what happens in the world. And that's really, the main shtick that I'm trying to get across to people is make yourself self-reliant, make yourself your own system, and keep it local, keep it within your own boundaries, keep it within your own sphere of influence. All right. Beijing aggression has turned Australia into a crucial pillar of US defense, says an expert. So this is, I didn't jot his name down, but hey, Steve, morning. How you doing? This was an expert in ANU, a professor from ANU, the Australian National University in Canberra, Australia, who's basically came out and he said, like, this is what China's doing. This is where we're seeing China going. This is what our government's been doing. And now this is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves at a critical point as Australia now, as a pillar of US defense. So if people have been curious as to why, like, we've been doing all these deals recently, like we've been really like pro Quad. And for those who don't know what the Quad is, it's Australia, Japan, India, and the US. Like that tie has been really like getting fortified lately. AUKUS, still a horrible name, but Australia, UK, US, with our sub deals and our interoperability between our intelligence agencies, even though we've got that anyway, but higher interoperability between that. We've been trying to reinforce our interoperability with other friendly nations within this area around China. So especially focusing on, like, obviously the US, but Japan and South Korea have been two of the larger ones as well. And then in our neck of the woods, in that Southeast Asia and Pacific Island area, except Solomon Islands. Not good stuff there. But all the rest of them, this defense thing has been, if you've been paying attention to it, like, it's been like, whoa, really quite in the forefront of our politicians' minds. And that's because I think everyone's recognizing now that, like, yeah, there's something that's going to happen here in this area, in the South China Sea. We got to do something about it. And, we have kind of built ourselves into the big brother of the South Pacific area. And we got, very good ties with the US, which we're tightening now. So yeah, now we find ourselves in this position that we're kind of one of the key points. And it seems like, I know as Aussies, we like to think we're awesome and on top of the world, but in reality, we're like a middle power, really. And that's like still punching up a bit. We don't have a massive population. Not like I'm talking, when we're talking about China and we're talking about the US and the exertion that forces like the European Union have. Australia is not in the same ballpark. We're not in the same sport, really. But all of a sudden, we've found ourselves called up to the big leagues. And so that's what this is basically saying here. And I think this is what we need to start thinking about, because we're integral. And if something happens, and something could quite well happen in our neck of the woods, we're part of it. So I want you to mull that over, that we're going to be part of that, and prepare accordingly. Yeah, Steve Garrington, awesome to meet you yesterday, man. It was cool. It was cool meeting people in the face to face. So many awesome, smiling people walking around Bondi. Good day too, nice and sunny. And then last off, sticking with China again, China has financial nuclear bombs. Again, the N-word. Second time in 2 days where the N-word has been whipped out for something that's not actually a nuclear bomb. Financial nuclear bomb if West levies Russia-style sanctions, Beijing warns. So if you've been paying attention to the news over the past 4 or 5 days, China is very much preparing themselves for sanctions. So why is that? Well, that's partly because the US has been barking at them, saying, "We're going to sanction you if you continue to buoy up Russia." Interestingly, too, the rhetoric coming out of US is saying, "Hey, you're going against our sanctions. You're buying their oil. You're buying their goods. You're buying their coal. That's working against us and the sanctions. It's not good." So everyone was like, "Yeah, that's not good." And then the US came out and said, "Hey, you're also supplying military gear to Russia," and everyone was like, "Wait, what? Is there any proof of that?" There's no proof of that. No one's actually said that. But US propaganda machine is doing what it does and throwing this stuff out there. Again, inflaming situations. But they're trying to turn, the world's eyes into the negative focus now on China, much more so, saying, not only are you sort of by proxy buoying up Russia against our sanctions, but you're actually involved in this war. You're supplying military goods to them. And maybe there are, I don't know, but I have not seen any piece of evidence as of yet, and I'll continue to search for some. And if anyone's listening to this and you have definitely seen, yes, China's supplying X and Y and Z to Russia, send it through to me, because I'll throw that up there definitely. But this is all the rhetoric that's flying around in the space at the moment, which I find interesting when it comes out. But China's sort of started gearing up towards these sanctions. So they've been warning all their government agencies. They've pulled in their financial mechanisms and their financial heads, and they've gone like, "Look, we might get sanctioned. Okay, this could happen. US is saying they might sanction us because of what we're doing with Russia, but in reality, everyone is looking at Taiwan and going, no, if they move into Taiwan, US will 100% slap those sanctions on." And I think China's looking at that and going like, they're moving the chessboard around at the moment. They're going, okay, we're going to take Taiwan. They're going to sanction us. So what's our next move? Okay, can we make ourselves a little bit sanction proof now? And so that's what they're doing. They're prepping. So they've actually come out, or a few experts have come out, but China has actually come out. I think it was a state media or someone to do with China, but definitely some think tanks over this side of the world, over in the West, have said, cool, like, yeah, slap those sanctions on, but just know, like, China is holding a lot of cards. You slap the sanctions on. If China wants to pull the rug, if China wants to flip the table, essentially, is what it's saying, or how I read it at least, is China has the ability to go full tantrum and say, nah, I'm taking my bat and ball and going home. So no one's playing cricket anymore. We're off. We're done. China can easily tank the entire world financial system. And I feel like if they get pushed into a corner, so that's why they're calling this the nuclear weapon of financial sort of things, because it's like, if Russia got pushed into a corner enough, there's a potential they could drop a bomb. And if they drop a bomb, other people are going to drop bombs. And then that's it. Genie's out of the bottle. It's on. Free game. And we're all going to hurt from that. Well, China has that ability too. They hold enough sway now within the financial system. And they haven't done this in the last year or two. This is 20 years of financial forethought and planning that China have done to position themselves like this. Okay. And I always say this, China has a long game, longer than most of us would even dare to think. So they've set themselves up now, and now everyone knows it's there, and they haven't quite said it. And I'm looking for that next piece of information where China comes out and says, do it, sanction us, see what happens. I don't think they've got to that point yet, but it's subtly there. I mean, they'll destroy themselves by doing it, but I think it's within their scope of things that they would be willing to do. If the West started slapping the sanctions on, China could just pull the rug through a number of mechanisms too. I'm not just talking one thing. It's not like, oh, we hold bonds, or we've got this currency reserves or whatever. They've got quite a few different systems that they could go like, well, we're pulling everything out. And you know what? Even though it hurts us, we're just going to deal with Russia and India and Brazil. That's our little block now. So have fun. Have fun dealing with somebody who doesn't have the power to us. By the way, good luck getting any MacBooks or Teslas or pretty much anything because we make it all. So yeah, there's this is one of these things where I'm looking at these two world powers like starting to butt heads, and I'm like, how do I not be anywhere near this right now? Number one, one of the biggest principles of security when I'm teaching security or when I'm actually doing security overseas is avoidance. Always try and avoid things. If you can see something happening and avoid it, that's the best way. Or like I like to say, the best way to win a fight is to not be in one. Or as Mr. Miyagi says, no be there. So try and get yourself out of this system. Have a look at your reliance on things that are coming out of China and go like, what if that wasn't there? And then look at all the other second, third order effects that would come out of a conflict between China and US. For starters, if you are a fighting age male in Australia, I'm not. Definitely, I don't think there's any scope for a draft or anything. And I'm not even sure we could get into a war that big right now, with the way the world is right now. But that's something to consider if you're a fighting age male. If you're between the ages of 18 and probably 30, as an Aussie at the moment, then have that floating around in your brain space there. Yeah, Dick Smith warned us 40 years ago in no uncertain terms. Are you talking about China or war or the US or everything? Dick Smith is quite a clever guy. All right, so that's pretty much that for today. So a couple of things there, some interesting little diseases and stuff that have popped up into the radar. That foot and mouth stuff, definitely something to keep an eye on. All these sorts of things. China. All these sorts of things, as I said at the probably halfway point through this one, is just good information for us to look at and go, okay, what's my next step? How do I prepare? And again, I said, a good place to start is build a grab bag and think about if you had to close your front door now and not leave your house, can you hang out in your house for 2 weeks? That's a pretty good start, I reckon. So think about that. Get in the garden, start gardening, start growing your own food, start making connections with local people, local farmers, all that sort of stuff. Start building community as well. So at the talk yesterday, we chatted a bit about community. We got that Telegram page, which at the moment just has some posts up on there of different states that you can get on. You can comment on your state and say, hey, I live here in this area. And in the future, I think I will start trying to organize courses in certain locations when people bug me enough and say, hey, I live up in this area, and I get 2 or 3 people from Newcastle or something like that. I'll go, hey, I'll come up, I'll run, a day course. You guys can connect, and then that's the hub, and you can build it from there. But start doing that by yourselves, I think, guys. Is like we need to start building these like little mutual assistance groups. We need to start prepping together. The individualist, don't look at my stuff, this is mine, Australian/British idea is great in some ways, but in other ways it hampers us. No man is an island. No person can live without other people for an extended period of time. So let's start connecting with each other and start coagulating. And give ourselves the best chance, no matter what happens in the world. Even if things go fine and everything's great and hunky-dory, then we've got some cool friends that we can still prep for in the future. But as you can see by these stories, the trend that we're getting in the world is less stability. So let's create our own stability. Generally speaking, when we have less stable times and less stable societies, we tend towards authoritarian and more probably, you could describe as right-wing or conservative type governance. So it's a weird thing that humans do. When we feel scared, we actually want somebody to tell us what to do. So, watch for that in this next election. People go like, we need somebody to just be the boss of me right now. Well, be your own boss is what I'm saying. Take charge of your own life. Have a bit of responsibility for your own survival situation and grasp that self-reliance. If we can do that, I think we'll be better off than having some ass clown in Canberra tell us what to do. That's just my opinion. You do what you do. You. All right, gang. That's it. Again, if you got any questions on anything at all, usually prepping related, but if you want to just ask any sort of random question, shoot. But until next time, keep prepping, get in the garden, and semper paratus. Thanks.